Hi, this is Risa with Risa Kerbo Creative, and I am going to show you how to make this felt hydrangea using a styrofoam ball as the center. So we start with a styrofoam ball in any size that we want for the finished project. Now, I'm using some crepe paper to cover the felt ball so that we don't see the white through, and this is a little bit more purple than blue, but I use purple as the shading in the middle of the blue petal, so it works out well to kind of provide a cohesive look and, accomplishes the purpose we want, which is the white not to show through. So crepe paper is a really cool material. If you've never tried it before, it's pretty stretchy and sticks. It's easy to work with. It's not sticky, but it kind of attaches to itself really well. I like it a lot, and I don't use it a whole lot, but I'm wanting to try and use it more often, especially for details and felt flowers. So I have some and thought it would be perfect for covering this styrofoam ball. And another option would be to paint it, or I'm sure there's other ideas. If you have any, leave a comment for us so that we can all learn from each other. But I just glued each end together and just kind of played around with it as I want. This is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm sure there's room for improvement, but really I know that the goal is to just cover up that white, and so this is helping us get to that goal. And I'm not too worried about it being perfect because it will be covered up with a lot of beautiful hydrangea petals. And now that the styrofoam ball is covered, we make our petals. We're adding it on to 22 gauge wire. Just fold it and snip it and put the wire through that tiny little slit in the middle of the petal. Now, the way we're gluing is important for this one. We're putting just a little dot of glue right in the very center of the circle, and instead of pitching the petals towards each other, we're just closing up the circle that's in the middle. And what this does is it allows a more open shape rather than the petals coming up and closing inward. So we have a more open hydrangea petal style. So we're just putting a tiny dot of glue right there in the middle of that circle, and then pinching the circle closed, and that allows our petals to stay open and cover a wider space. And this will help us have, a couple of reasons. This is a fun, different style of hydrangea, and then it just helps us cover more surface area because this is a time-intensive flower as far as the amount of petals you need to finish it. So I wanted the petals to be a little bit more open just to cover more surface and also to be able to see the shading in the middle. So it works out to take less time and still really be a huge impact as far as the finished flower goes. So just pinching right there in the center, not wanting to close it up too much, wanting to keep it open. So this is real time right here. I'm just pinching and holding and making sure that the glue really sets and hardens, because if it doesn't, then it will pop back open and we'll be able to see the glue. But then the way it's glued allows us to have it kind of a flat petal style once we're done with just a little bit of detail there in the middle. So it's a really pretty petal. We have to make a lot of these to cover our styrofoam ball, but it's worth it in the end. Shading is always an optional step, but I love the dimension it adds, and you can just use any type of eyeshadow that you have around or pan pastels as well. I'm just using a Q-tip and covering the middle of the flower with just this purple highlight, and you can use a scrap piece of felt as well to test out the color and just see how it transfers to the felt color that you're using. But I think the eyeshadow works really well. It's a method I recommend. It doesn't rub off very easily. I think if you were to sit there and rub it with your hand, of course it would probably come off, but it is one of those things that because you're not touching it a lot, it's not going to rub off. And it doesn't just fall off automatically. You're putting eyeshadow onto a fabric and it stays on really well. When I put in the stem, this is an 18 gauge floral wire, I was having a hard time poking it in because the glue was in that spot, because that's where I glued the tissue paper. So I needed to use something to stab it. I used this little thing that's made for felt balls and just stabbed a hole in the end of that, and then it was able to put my wire in that way. And so I just squirted some hot glue in, stuck the 18 gauge wire in, and let that dry. So now we have a stem on our felt ball, and we're ready to add the petals in. Now there's not a magical length as far as the stem on these hydrangea petals, just however long you want to make them. I ended up making them a little bit shorter as I went, but just whatever size you're comfortable with. You obviously don't want it to stick all the way through, but we have some leverage here as far as the length goes, depending on what size of styrofoam ball you're using in the middle. So just cut those stems and stick the petals in. Now, one thing I did realize as I was making this, just to give you a tip on inserting these hydrangea petals, is you want to put them in the direction that you want the petal to face. So like if you're at the top of the felt ball, stick it down straight. If you're on the side, stick it out to the side. If you're on the bottom, stick it out to the bottom. Don't tilt the petals towards you. Follow the direction of the flower itself. So like if you're putting them on the bottom, I was when I first started doing it, was kind of trying to angle it up towards myself and realized, no, I just need to follow the direction. So it's okay that those petals are facing down because we want a continuous look of petals going all different directions around the circle. And then that will just help us get the look we want with like a very full, pretty hydrangea blossom once all of these are inserted into the styrofoam ball. So we'll just make our way around the flower, and when we're happy with the end result, I didn't end up, I stopped early. I didn't fill it all the way in at the bottom because I knew that wasn't going to show. You could put a leaf at the bottom if you wanted to, or just fill it all the way around, but this is our finished hydrangea bloom.